this channel. Today we're going to be answering the question, did Akron, Ohio cops murder and mutilate Jayland Walker? Stay tuned right after this.
That Corbin and Corbin legal team fighting for the rights of the people. That father-daughter team investing in the youth when the system ain't treating them equal. Providing truth for our people, we able to reach them. So anytime you get accused for a crime and Lord knows you ain't do it, we here to get you through it. Exemplifying prudence and glorifying God, making sure you're compensated for other people's doings. Our vision is to be one of the best. We're small enough to focus on your matter throughout the neighborhoods of Dallas. Working constantly and making sure your rights are protected. A firm team of lawyers, aggressive, effective. A team that has your back in the courtroom. Two well-spoken black lawyers in the courtroom. Investing time and resources when it's evident that you were treated wrong. Now you walking out of Dallas courtroom with a settlement. Corbin and Corbin, the father-daughter legal tag team that has your back in the courtroom. Our purpose is simple. To obtain the favorable outcome for each client and glorify Christ in all we do. Our vision is to be one of the best and most...
Hello, Rebels. This is Attorney Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice, and with me I have
Attorney Augustus Corbett, aka the Minister of Justice.
We are your defiant lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you to defy this unjust legal system. Before we get into all of the topics that we're going to discuss today, why don't you go ahead and leave this video a like? You know you're going to like it. That's why you're back now. And if this is your first time watching, I promise you that you will. So go ahead and like this video for us. Show us some love. Show us that you are appreciating this content, this analysis, and this discussion that we bring each and every Saturday and every week about topics affecting the Black community. In addition, go ahead and comment. We are live now. We love interacting with the Rebels on whether you agree with us or not. We love seeing your comments, responding to your comments. So as you continue to watch this program as we're live, go ahead and leave a comment and we'll sure to give you a shout out as we see it. And share this video with your family and friends so that they too can get this valuable information that we're bringing to you weekly. So without all of that, Dad, how are you doing today and happy Saturday?
I'm good, Chloe. How about you? What's good with you?
I'm good. I am excellent. We're discussing some sad topics today. But I am glad to be up here on this broadcast with you doing this analysis. So, like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about the tragic death of Jayland Walker, who was a 25-year-old young Black man who was killed by Akron, Ohio cops last week when he was shot over 60 times. So we're going to play this video footage for our viewers today before we get into this analysis and begin discussing his case. We do want to say that this footage may offend or sadden some viewers. It is hard to watch, so please be aware of that before we play it.
Stop. It's your fucking hands. It's your fucking hands. Don't you fucking move the car. You fucking move. Hey, don't fucking move. Don't fucking move. Don't fucking move. Show me your hands. Show me your fucking hands.
And there it is. And there it is. So what we played for you all is body cam that was released by the Akron, Ohio Police Department involving the officer-involved shooting of Jayland Walker last week. Jayland was unarmed. He was shot more than 60 times. And that is just a portion of the footage that was released by the Akron Police Department. That's what you heard today. That's what you saw today. This is very tragic, and we're going to be discussing whether those police officers murdered and mutilated Jayland Walker with that footage. What are your thoughts on it, Dad?
Well, as I was preparing the video, the graphics for this, two things struck me, Chloe. First of all, just how sad it is to watch a young man get shot to death. His body having 60 bullet holes. And you and I, as a part of our job, we oftentimes have to look at autopsy pictures. And they're very difficult to look at. I literally would hate to see these pictures because of what was done to this young man's body. And it's the reason why we ask not only whether they murdered him, but whether they mutilated him. One thing we see, and the other thing that struck me too, well, one thing that we see is Jayland is running away from these officers. Turns out he is not armed. We know that they said they saw what they think was a gun flash when he got stopped. And there is some footage of it looking like him having some kind of face covering mask or something on. But the question is whether or not he posed imminent danger at the moment of them shooting him over 60 times. I think they discharged their weapons. 8 different officers discharged their weapons at least 90 times. 6 bullets struck his body. The legal question is whether or not he was posing an imminent threat to these officers. And I suppose I mean, you're going to sort of guide this conversation, and I'm sure we'll get into 2 seminal cases, Tennessee v. Garner and Graham versus Connor, the 2 U.S. Supreme Court cases that sort of control all of these events. So I'll throw it back to you before we get into that. But I want the audience to know that's the question. Was he an imminent threat to these officers when they discharged their weapons? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to give the audience a little bit more backstory about this matter. And after that, Dad, I would like to put that footage back on the screen and slow it down if we can. But before we do that,
I'm not sure we can. I couldn't download the footage like I normally could for some reason. I think they got it codecs in a way where you can't download it. So we probably won't be able to do that. I can queue it up again and watch it, but I don't think that I will be able to.
Are you playing it from YouTube?
I'm playing it straight from YouTube, yes.
There's a feature on YouTube where you can slow video footage down, like half the speed, 75% of the speed.
Well,
I don't know if you.
I'll look at it while you're giving some background. I'll see if we can do it.
So Jayland was 25 years old. He was unarmed at the time when the police According to the police, he was fleeing from them during a routine traffic stop. He didn't have a firearm on him at this time. When they went to his body after shooting all of those bullets into his body, they did not find any type of weapon, a firearm, knife, any other type of weapon. According to the police, they were trying and attempting to stop Mr. Walker for a routine traffic stop involving some type of equipment use. Typically, here in Texas, that means either a light is out or maybe a registration is outdated, something of that nature. So it was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. According to the police, and again, this is the police's version. Obviously, they are coming out to try to um, defend themselves in the way that they handled this matter, this heartbreaking matter, shooting all of these bullets. So this is just according to the police timeline. But at the time, they said when they attempted to stop Jayland for this routine traffic stop, he did not stop. The car kept going. The car kept driving. They claim, according to what they saw, that there was some type of muzzle flash as if Jayland had fired out of his vehicle. Again, they did not find any type of weapon on him. He was unarmed at the time when he was supposedly allegedly fleeing. With that, 8 officers came on the scene, and you heard those gunshots where eight officers at the same time were shooting at Jayland as he was quote unquote allegedly attempting to flee. Um, it has come out that Jayland does not have any type of criminal history. We know with a lot of these cases, when the person is black who the police have killed, they try to bring up any type of alleged criminal history or use that as a reason to show that the black person was dangerous. In this case, they can't use that trope card because Jayland did not have any criminal history. I believe he just had a traffic ticket. I've had a traffic ticket. That's something that is completely common. But besides that, he has no type of criminal history. And his family, they've hired an attorney to represent the family, and they're just seeking answers and seeking information on why the officers felt the need to shoot Jayland over 60 times and shoot in his direction when he was unarmed. It doesn't make any sense. And as attorneys, what we have to look at based on the limited information that we have now, based on these news reports and the police officer's timeline, is like my dad said, we're going to analyze whether or not when Jayland was allegedly fleeing, according to the police, whether he posed an imminent danger to himself, to the police officers, or to the public. And I will argue, according to the footage that the police themselves presented, that Jayland was not posing any type of imminent danger to the police or to the public. He was unarmed, and in fact, he was fleeing away from the police, according to them. According to them, he was not going closer to the police. He was not attempting to approach them. He did not have a gun pointed at them. He was allegedly fleeing. So, because of that, I will argue, based on the information that they've released, he was not an imminent danger to anyone, including the police. Could we cue that footage back up to show for the viewers again, Dad?
Okay, I am doing so now. I think that I should be able to slow it down some.
Okay.
All right, so let's see here.
Can you stop it right here, Dad?
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, it seemingly shows that police officers are approaching a person, and we believe that person is Jayland. I saw on the screen 4 police officers. Is that amount about the amount that you saw on the screen, Dad?
It's hard to tell, but it looks like that many. But we know ultimately there were 8 officers. There were, from some other footage on that they released, there are several officers who are out of frame that are to our, since we're facing this, to our left. Okay. And some of the other, and there's body cam. Some of those officers are wearing body cam as well, body cameras. So you can see them and see them firing. But so 4 from this angle, there are others from other angles.
Okay. Can we play it some more?
Okay. Okay, now here I want to point out that according to the officers, they are now attempting, or at some point, they are attempting to taser him. Okay, according to them. All right, we cannot corroborate that or put it this way. The family, their attorneys, their investigators, they have not been, or they haven't corroborated that to my knowledge. Actually, this is from another angle, Chloe.
Okay.
Yeah, this is from the side of everything.
And I didn't see any officers attempting to tase Jayland at that angle. Was that Jayland's body laying on the ground?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, may he rest in peace.
May you rest in peace. And what you hear, what you notice also is what you hear. The officers cursing, dropping F-bombs, the callousness of which they're cursing at Jayland. And to me, that shows the officers' intent as well, as they are shooting all of these bullets into Jayland's body as he is, according to them, attempting to flee. So I want to go to a case that my dad mentioned earlier, Tennessee v. Garner. And this is one of the most important Supreme Court cases that details the type of force that police officers can use when they are chasing a suspect. The case is from 1985, and I'm just going to give the holding or the ruling of the Supreme Court first, and then we can discuss it in more details. So the Supreme Court ruled based on this case that under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which in part says that us as citizens, you, me, the rebels out there listening to this, us as citizens, we are free from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. So a seizure would be being detained by a police officer, being arrested by a police officer, taken to an interrogation room, taken to a police station. We're free from unreasonable searches and seizures. So the Supreme Court held that under the Fourth Amendment, that provision, that a police officer may use deadly force only to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect, only if the officer has a good faith belief that the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or others. So the Supreme Court is saying here that deadly force, that the police killing someone, is reasonable under the Fourth Amendment only if the officer has a good faith belief that the suspect poses a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or to others. So that is the analysis that we have to look at these cases to whether or not, when these Akron police officers killed Jayland Walker, whether it was reasonable for them to use deadly force and kill him, to whether or not they believe that there was significant risk of death or physical threat to others. And like I said before, I'm just going to give my conclusion. Deadly force was not reasonable in this case. It has already come out, according to the police officers, that Jayland, at the time that he was um, fleeing from the police officers, he was unarmed. He was not running after anyone, according to the facts that have come out. He was not approaching the police officers coming to them. In fact, there were 8 police officers running after him. So, based on just those few facts, I don't believe that it was reasonable for the police officers to use deadly force. What do you think, Dad? What is your analysis?
Okay. Well, before I do, let us acknowledge some of the rebels who've joined us. First Row Quaint says excessive and unjustified. My sweetie, your mom says just sad that police shot that many times. Alicia says, in addition to, hey everyone, she says, what, 60 times? And looks like a new, sorry, looks like a new rebel saying it like it is, says there is a lot more going on than the police, that the police are not telling us. Completely agree with that.
Me too.
Now, in terms of my, and by the way, to the, I think the first time legal rebel, not crickets, sorry. That's kind of weak. So to really show you how much we appreciate new rebels.
Yes.
All right. So saying it like it is, obviously we're glad to see you. When you all come in, please hit the like button. Just stop what you're doing right now. Hit the like button right now, because YouTube, they like it when you like it, and the algorithm, just promotes us. So please, 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 hit the like button. Saying it like it is, says thanks. Absolutely, thank you for tuning in. Did you mention Graham v. Connor?
I didn't mention Graham, Dad, just Tennessee.
Okay. All right. So Tennessee v. Garner. Yes, you said it correctly, Chloe. As a matter of fact, I did a video on this some years ago. Go to our YouTube channel. It's called, I think, Can Police Shoot an Unarmed Fleeing Felon? And that's exactly what this was. This was an unarmed fleeing. Well, we don't know if he was a felon yet. They alleged that he shot at them, and if he had shot at them, then certainly that would be a felony. But just because they say it doesn't mean it truly happened. So at best we can say right now is he was an unarmed black young brother fleeing from the police.
Mm-hmm.
They said also they thought that he at one point was turning toward them. I don't see that in that video at all. I see him running full speed away from them. And it turns out he was unarmed. So based on what we've seen thus far, I would agree with you, Chloe, that the shooting, and I would agree with saying it like it is, that this was unjustified. So that's my preliminary determination. However, there is another case that I just asked Chloe about that's called Graham v. Connor. This is another Supreme Court case, and it sort of qualifies the Tennessee v. Garner case. The Graham Connor case says that police officers have a difficult job. They're making split-second decisions. Therefore, it's hard to second guess what they're doing in the heat of the moment. The court also said that when looking at these kinds of cases, the fact finder has to look at it from the perspective of the police officer, not from the perspective of a Monday morning quarterback or from the perspective of, defense lawyers and so forth, or even the jury or judge or prosecutor. They say that you have to look at it from the perspective of the police officer. What was going on in the police officer's mind? What was going on? What were the facts? What were the circumstances? Like I said, they're making split-second decisions. Now, again, this is not me talking. This is me sharing with you what the U.S. Supreme Court has said in these kinds of cases. All right? And so that gives the police officer a lot of leeway despite the Tennessee v. Garner case. Okay? So because of that leeway, the prosecutor's going to have to decide whether or not they're even going to present this to a grand jury. And then the grand jury is going to have to decide, balancing those two cases, whether or not there's probable cause to bring charges against these cops. Now, probable cause is a very low standard. Very, very different than beyond a reasonable doubt that's needed to find somebody guilty of a criminal offense. So if it, at a minimum, we can say it's not even, to me, debatable that there is probable cause to at least indict these officers. And based on what we've seen so far, yes, I would argue that there is also enough for a conviction. All that said, we do criminal defense work as well, and we must, in fairness, say that these officers are presumed innocent until they're proven guilty with creditable evidence that has been, worked through the rules of evidence and so on, criminal procedure rules and laws. But just from a preliminary observation of the video, it is clear that Jayland was running away from the police. Even the police admits that he was unarmed.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, he wasn't posing any sort of threat. But they're going to say, yeah, but we've seen a flash, which appeared to be a gun muzzle, which appeared to be a gunshot. He looked at us as if he was doing the chase, as if he was going to turn around and start shooting. And he had on a ski mask, not a ski mask, but one of those wool cloths with the face cut out. So with all this going on, the officers are going to say, we just made a split-second decision. We need to take this young man down to prevent him from, they're going to say, who knows? He might have had a gun, the same gun we thought we saw him shoot. He may have had it with him and would have been a threat to any of us and to any civilian that he would have come in contact with. So they're going to make that argument. And sadly and unfortunately, grand juries tend to give the police officers the benefit of the doubt in these cases. And in most instances, they don't even indict the officers. So that is my analysis on the as to whether or not they were justified and as to whether or not criminal charges should be filed against them. Now, Chloe, before you chime in, there's something that I want to do before I forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? and it has to do with one of the cases, police shooting cases that we're handling. And this young man, this handsome young man here, his name was Jesse Carranza. He was killed by a Texas DPS officer, and they shot Jesse dead last year. And we're fighting for Jesse. But what we're running up against is this happened, his shooting occurred in El Paso, Texas. And the El Paso District Attorney's Office are not releasing any information whatsoever to Jesse's family, to us who represents his family. Not one thing, not one thing. They won't even tell us the officer's name who shot Jesse. They won't tell us nothing. And this is the local district attorney for El Paso County. It seems to me the district attorney's office would certainly be trying to at least keep the family informed, keep the family updated, but they're doing none of that. And Chloe is going to get down there maybe next week and do a press conference, because if you don't take these matters to the public, they'll just get swept under the rug. If you don't convince the court of public opinion, then quite often you won't get justice in the court of law. So we have been trying to just do this, quietly, hoping the DA's office of all people would do right by Jesse's family, but they're not doing it. And it's time for us to increase this to the nth degree. Go ahead, Chloe.
I didn't mean to cut your thought off that.
No, I was just going to say, probably next week we're going to show the video, because we too have a video of what happened with Jesse's shooting. And we're going to show that video and show you that Jesse was shot, based on that video, unlawfully.
Yeah.
Based on what we see. There's information that the DA could give us, and perhaps there's something that would lead us to think otherwise. But based on what we see and know, the shooting was unjustified. And if I can, let me put Jesse's picture up here one more time. Jesse Carranza.
Justice
Carranza.
Yes, justice for Jesse. And to that point, not only should the El Paso County district attorneys give us this information. By law, they're required to. In Texas, victims have a right to certain information about criminal proceedings from the district attorney's offices. They have a right to be informed about the stage of the investigation, about reasonable information relating to the criminal proceeding, and a whole host of other rights that Texas law gives them as well. And we have received nothing, despite multiple requests for information, even simply just the officer's name. Now, we understand that the district attorney wants to keep their investigation, clean and not have any hiccups. We get that. But at the same time, they have a obligation to Jesse's mother, Jessica Vargas, and Jesse's family as well, to keep them updated through us about what is happening with this officer's case. They have an obligation to do it. Texas law requires it. And we're not asking for anything extraordinary. Basic information. to give some type of information to this family so that they will have it. And it's been almost a year since Jesse was killed by this DPS officer. Next week, it'll be a year. And we are still fighting to get this information. And just like my dad said, we've done it quietly, we've reached out. Now it's time to take it to the public. And that's what we intend to do. So, Justice for Jesse, you all are going to be getting more information about that. You're going to be hearing about our efforts. You're going to be seeing the news conferences as we continue to fight for their family to get justice on his behalf. So stay tuned.
There is there are several other police cases that we're handling. Another young man who was shot by the police, we will be having information about his case very soon as well. So this is happening all the time. And if you think it's not happening, then you're sadly mistaken. I do want to say this. I have to say this to people who are listening. And that is this. We don't know if Jayland, back to Jayland, this is Jayland's family. I believe that's his mother sitting down, and I'm not certain that the other lady is his sister. I'm not sure. I do need to say this. If it turns out that Jayland did fire once he was pulled over, and if Jayland knew it was the police officer, that is not something that we would encourage anyone to do. We would not encourage anyone to get into a shootout with the police. We would encourage people to do as much as possible to de-escalate the matter, and not do anything that would escalate the matter. Now, obviously, we have examples of the police shooting people, black men especially, even when they complied. We also have examples of police officers not shooting white men. A couple weeks ago, about the same time Jayland was killed, a white man shot and killed 3 police officers in Kentucky. And not one shot fired at him. So there are definitely 2 systems here. All the more reason why, if you're pulled over, especially if you're a black man, do everything possible to de-escalate the matter. That would include not running. Now, we defend people all the time, Chloe, who run from the police. And they're on foot. If they're on foot in the state of Texas when they're running, that is a simple misdemeanor. It's called evade and arrest. The most punishment someone will get from that in Texas, and they likely won't get that, but the most they would get here is 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine, or both. And most of the time they don't get that. Point I'm making is, don't run. You should not run from the police or resist, which is also a misdemeanor here in Texas. Don't do it. But if you do, you shouldn't get shot to death either. But I'm cautioning you not to do it because it's going to heighten things. And since these officers are already trigger happy when it comes to black men. You need to do everything you can to walk away from that situation alive. And if they violated your rights, then call us or call some law firm and we can see what we can do. But we can't do much of anything if the encounter resulted in your death and you have given them an excuse to do what they did to this young man, which nothing justifies this. Nothing. He was an unarmed, fleeing person, potentially a felon. We don't know. But even if he was, they should not have shot him and basically mutilated his body like this. But Chloe, I had to say that. And I don't want anyone to take that to say, well, it sounds like he's justifying the shooting. I'm not. I'm trying to prevent as much as possible future shootings because someone decided to take on the police at night somewhere. Not saying that's what Jayland did. But don't even let it be named. Don't even give them the reason to do it. Or the reason to say you did it. Let the body cam show you complying. Let the body cam show you putting your hands behind your back. Let the body cam show you being respectful. Now, somebody, may say, yeah, but hold on. Why do we have to be like that and other people can do all kind of other stuff and still don't get shot? I get it. I get it. I'm a black man. I have a son. But let's be real. They think nothing of shooting us. Let's not give them any more reason to do it and then give the grand jury some reason not to even hold them accountable.
That part. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And I think one of the larger points you're making too, Dad, is the contrast in which police officers deal with us, meaning they typically shoot and kill us, versus white men. And I think the case of the Highland Park shooter contrasts that. This is a young man who killed 6 people in a mass shooting at a 4th of July parade. He was apprehended alive, taken into custody alive, and he still has his life. Versus Jayland Walker, who was at most fleeing, ends up with 60 bullet holes in his body, and his life is taken away. So these two tragic events, both which occurred within about the same 1 week to 2 week period, shows the contrast in a lot of ways of how police deal with black people versus white people. And here we have on the screen this alleged shooter right here. What is his name? Richard Cremo. I believe it's his name.
I think it's Robert Cremo II.
Robert Cremo II. He is the alleged gunman involved in the mass shooting at the Highland Park 4th of July, where 6 people lost their lives, 2 of which were parents to a small 2-year-old child. He's now facing 7 counts of first-degree murder charges and faces life behind bars if convicted. And these are some of the victims right here.
This is all of them.
This is all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Nicholas Toledo, Irina, and Kevin McCarthy. Those are the parents of the 2-year-old who no longer have parents any longer. Eduardo Uvaso. Catherine. Huh?
Uvaldo.
Oh, Uvaldo. Catherine Goldstein, Stephen Strauss, and Jackie Sundheim. So he's taken in alive.
Yep.
He's behind bars.
Was the Buffalo shooter.
And so, yes, so was the Buffalo shooter and the shooter
And
at
and
the
and and and,
church
and
back
Chloe,
in South Carolina.
that's another thing too. And we're going to talk about this a little bit here in a moment. But these mass shootings are occurring so fast, it's hard to even keep up with them.
Yeah, it is.
Right? The Buffalo shooter, the Uvalde shooter, now the Highland Park shooter. I mean, these sick, demented young men, quite often white men, sort of misfits in society, taking out their social, I guess, rejection or whatever they're feeling out on the rest of society. And I also would point out that while we focus a lot on these mass shootings, we cannot overlook all the shootings that occur every day in urban settings in this nation that don't get this attention. Like last week, 4th of July weekend, 70 people got shot in Chicago. 70. And all over the country in inner city areas, many more people shot and killed than these mass shootings. Yet mass shootings are the ones that get all the attention. So we don't want to lose that fact either.
Yeah.
Now back to this shooting here. One very interesting legal question has arisen, which is whether or not Robert Crimo Jr., who is the father of the shooter in the Highland Park shooter, whether or not he should be charged criminally or held civilly liable for sponsoring his son to buy guns when they had been having all kinds of problems with Robert Crimo the second. I think, no, it might have been the third. But his son, the gentleman on the screen, he sponsored his son, the Highland Park shooter, to buy guns, knowing that the police had been called to their homes reportedly, repeatedly, to remove knives. When the young man threatened to kill everybody in the family, and yet this guy sponsors his son to buy firearms, and equally, and maybe even more maddening, is the system allowed him to buy guns despite his many contacts with police for threatening people, for having mental illness. The system still allow him to buy these guns legally. Now, very quickly, with this guy right here, Chloe, I don't think that they will charge him criminally. I could be wrong. I don't know Illinois law. There may be some statute which would permit that. But I definitely believe he will be held liable in civil court.
Yeah, I anticipate the families filing wrongful death suits against him. And in fact, he's hired an attorney who represented R. Kelly with his civil cases as well. So he's already anticipating potentially either receiving some civil lawsuits against him and or criminal lawsuits. But I want to just go into a little detail about their family and the police involvement with the family. According to the Chicago Tribune, Highland Park police were called to their family home at least 9 times between 2010 and 2014 in response to domestic disputes between Robert Crimo Jr., the father, Denise Pacina, the mother, and Robert Crimo the second, the son. And there's just a picture painted by the Highland Police Department of a tumultuous and violent home. That's what you were referring to earlier, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And between the parents and with Robert Crimo, the son himself. And What you're referring to is in September 2019, according to the Chicago Tribune, a few months before Cremo, the father, applied for a gun permit, police conducted a wellness check following a report that the son had made a threat in the household, stating he was going to, quote, kill everyone. The police report noted that a person whose identity was redacted in the report said that they were afraid to go home because of the threat and because of the son's collection of knives. So this report was made about this alleged statement from this young man saying he was going to kill everyone before the father goes out a couple weeks later and applies for a gun on his son's behalf, knowing the type of violence and instability that his son had. And then the police were also called in another time back in 2019 to the Cremo household, and they confiscated a number of weapons and knives that they took from the son. But then the father said that the knives were actually his collection, that he was just keeping them in the son's room for storage. And the police gave the knives and weapons back to the family and left it at the family home. So, we talk a lot about gun control laws, about these red flag laws, which allows police officers or family members or mental health professionals to apply with courts to have dangerous weapons removed from people. But in this case, the police were called out to the home. They were made aware of the violence and the instability of this individual. And yet, because of his father's, in my opinion, cover up and allowing him to have access to these weapons, 3 years later, this alleged incident happens. So,
when you talk also about police culpability, law enforcement culpability, did they know about all this when they issued this young man permits to buy firearms? Did the FBI know about these incidents when they approved his federal firearm application? See, that is a gaping hole in the system.
yeah.
And it's there because under federal law, a person must be first adjudicated as a mental defective or involuntarily ordered to get mental health treatment before mental illness is deemed serious enough to keep the person from owning firearms. So someone can be having some serious undiagnosed or even diagnosed mental illness and still buy firearms. Now, Chloe, let's go to some of the comments. Saying it like it is, said, I made 2 videos about this and got a lot of heat, but I have to say it like it is.
I like that name.
Yeah. Very good. And covered on video also about Lemeso police criminal case against Amari Johnson. Okay, I'm not familiar with that case. Say it like it is. The way I see it, nothing has changed since 1992 in LA and even before that. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I believe he is referencing Rodney King. Say it like it is. Thanks for saying it like it is. People need to wake up and realize, yes, we tend to say it like it is too. Say it like it is because our name is the Defiant Lawyers. So we defy we defy the system, raising up others to do the same. When you have a police officer in Buffalo, New York, slap his partner officer that tried to break him up for what he was doing with the suspect, and the partner officer gets the blame for doing the right thing. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom talks about the code of silence in the system. She is absolutely right. So we are trying to wake people up to what's going on here. Okay. Now, as we talk about gun control laws, Chloe, there's something that happened internationally, I think, that you want to comment on as it relates to gun control laws, and that was the assassination of the former prime minister of Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Prime Minister Abe, he was Japan's longest elected prime minister before the current prime minister. He retired 2 years ago. He was shot 2 days ago while he was doing a campaign speech out in the middle of the street by a gunman who had a some type of handmade gun missile. And this is just reverberated around the world because Japan is known for being strictly pro gun control. Last year, it was reported that they only had one gun related death. One, just one in the entire country. In the entire population of Japan, it was reported that there was just one gun related death. Um, and for those of you all who know the history, after World War II, after the bombing of Japan, the U.S. implemented a policy in that country which made it that they could not have an army or a military. So they don't have any armed forces. They're known for kind of embracing this being anti-gun and pro-gun control. And so the fact that this was able to happen in such a strictly controlled country when it comes to guns has just shocked the world. So it's just interesting and it's tragic. Let me first say that it's tragic, and my prayers go out to Prime Minister Abe's family, his wife, his children. But in the context of what America is going through,
and the Japanese people, yeah, I mean
and the
that's
Japanese people, and there's a large Japanese population in Hawaii too, so they're feeling the effects as well. There's a lot of the Japanese people in Hawaii, but it is just in the midst of all of the shootings that are occurring in the U.S. and then to have this assassination of a prime minister in Japan, something needs to be done in this country to stop all of the gun violence that is occurring. But I do think it's interesting that even in a country like Japan, which was tightly controlled, it was hard to get access to guns, that this person was able to make a handmade gun and still assassinate the former prime minister. So I'm a believer in gun control to a point, but I do agree with a lot of the critics that say criminals are going to get their hands on firearms. So it's not necessarily the firearms that are the issues as well. It needs to be a complete overhaul of our relationship with firearms, of who has access to firearms, and really treating people with mental health issues before it even gets to the point of becoming violent. The same for the case in Japan, the same for the case here. So I really, our leaders, they need to do something to get all of this under control because I'm tired of hearing every week is some type of mass shooting, something here locally in the Dallas area in Texas, somewhere in the United States, of all of this gun violence. We need to get a handle on it quickly.
I don't think we will. I
Yeah.
think there are just too many guns and too many sick people.
Yeah.
It's just cultural, it's spiritual. Yeah, there's some big gaping legal loopholes that allow people like this to get guns. So, I mean, I'm just not optimistic that we'll be able to get the genie back in the bottle. And America is fiercely pro-gun, and there is a little thing in the Constitution called the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's right.
So well, let's again, rest in peace to all of the folks that we talked about, their families, etc. let's switch our attention. Before we do, a couple comments. Your mom complimented you as she always does. Interesting history, Chloe. Alicia says, I agree. Well explained, Miss Corbett. Very good. So we're going to switch our attention now to sports. We're going to talk about sports each week because Chloe and I, we love sports. And remember, yes, our motto, our mission statement is to do legal analysis of trending politics, but not all politics, politicians, but not all politicians, personalities, or pop culture. So we got the door open to talk about some of these things, but always from a Black perspective. And so a little bit of news was made this week when the Las Vegas Raiders hired the NFL's first Black female president. Now, let me just quickly, since this is a Black female, I'm going to, let you talk about this, and so on. But I am a huge football fan, although I'm boycotting the NFL right now. Let me just throw out my comments very quickly. I am very a suspect that this is, with all due respect to this young woman who I'm sure she deserves everything. I don't mean to take anything from her, but I'm just skeptical of the NFL, and all of this is happening right along the time when Brian Flores has sued the NFL for racism and all the other stuff that's being said about racism in the NFL. And so I'm just a little suspect that this is tokenism.
It could be that, but in my opinion, it's welcome tokenism. Based on what I've seen.
Is tokenism ever welcomed?
Well, let me rephrase that. It's welcome that they've hired a Black woman in this position. Okay. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with you that it's tokenism, Dad, because if you look at her resume, she's been involved in sports. She was on a gaming board for the NFL. So she seems to have a stellar resume and a lot of experience in this area.
Okay.
So they may have been trying to kill two birds with one stone. They may be trying to.
Like I said, I'm not attempting to take anything away from her stellar credentials and her achievements. I just don't trust the NFL. And, in light of the Bryant Flores lawsuit and all the other heat that the NFL is taking because of the way it treated Kaepernick, I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
I feel you. Look, I have boycotted the NFL as well. Ever since that whole Colin Kaepernick thing, I haven't watched one game, which is completely different for us because we were the family that right after church, we were going to watch some football at 12 p.m., at 3 p.m., Sunday night football, Monday night football. Then they started having it on Thursdays. We were going to watch it every single game, especially when the Steelers were playing. And then we had a love-hate relationship with the Cowboys where we would watch them and laugh at them at the same time. Your
mother's team, the Seahawks.
Yes. So we're big football heads. But I have to give a shout out to Ms. Morgan. She is a fellow Black female attorney. Woo, 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 woo. So right. She's a lawyer.
All right.
She was a litigation attorney. She was, yes, of counsel with a big 500 Covington and Burlington LLP before she got into the sports space. So now the Las Vegas Raiders have hired her to be their president, to run the day-to-day operations of that football team, organization that brings in millions of dollars if not billions of dollars. So she's going to be kind of the face of the team as the president, running the front office, the administrative things, the day-to-day operations. So this is big. Shout out to my fellow Black female attorneys. We make up less than 2% of licensed attorneys in the United States. So we are doing big things. And off camera, we talked about this, that the NFL is behind because the NBA already has a Black woman running one of its biggest teams here, the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes.
Um, yes. What is her name? Her name slips me.
Cynthia
Yes,
Marshall.
Cynthia Marshall.
They call her Cent for short.
Yes.
Talk like
Yes.
she's real tough too.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And Mark Cuban speaks very highly of her, saying that she basically runs the team. He kind of stands back and she handles everything. So, and that as sports fans, we know that the NFL are behind the times with these issues, with diversity issues. In our opinion, we saw what they did to Colin Kaepernick. The NBA has kind of always been the kind of cooler, more hip, more socially aware, more justice minded organization in terms of sports than the NFL.
Yep.
So maybe the popularity of the NBA is kind of rubbing off on the NFL, and they'll stop being so stodgy and set in their ways and get this diversity, and see that because most of their employees are Black. 70% of the NFL players are Black. That means that more Black people need to be in leadership positions. If they're bringing all of these billions of dollars into this league, we need more Black people running it as well. So hopefully this is a turnaround. We'll see.
Yeah, we hope so. Now, I'm just very skeptical.
Yeah, I am too.
And which brings me to another situation the NFL is dealing with currently,
Yeah.
and that is the Deshaun Watson situation. And don't want to defame him in any way, but he has been accused of, having some inappropriate contact with some masseuse. Is that what they're called, female masseuse?
Yeah, masseuse.
Okay. And grand jury there in Houston, from what I can tell, has declined to indict him on 4 separate occasions, 4 different grand juries. But he has settled with 20 of the 24 people who accused him. So there are 4 who are still standing out. Now, here's the only point I'm making. Point I'm making here and bringing up Mr. Watson is the NFL, and he signed a recent contract with the Cleveland Browns, I believe. Somebody, your mom will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the Browns for a huge $250 million
Wow.
deal. $250 million. And again, this is a man who's been accused of multiple women of these things. Now, so he can get that kind of deal, and Colin Kaepernick cannot get.
Ooh, that's a good point.
That's the point.
Ooh,
He can get that kind of deal. Colin Kaepernick can't get a deal. And what are the offenses of both? Well, one man just took a stand for racial justice. The other man is accused of these things, and he is presumed innocent. In fact, 4 grand juries didn't see enough probable cause to indict him on anything. And so he stands under the law innocent, okay? But the fact that folks made these kind of accusations, multiple accusations against him, and he's still able to get this kind of deal, and Colin Kaepernick can't get anything, it shows you, to me, the NFL, like, okay, their attitude is, don't you talk about racism, but you can do whatever else you want to do. Just don't talk about racism.
Well, the NFL kind of have a history with that, with your beloved Steelers, that there were multiple
True.
accusations against Big Ben, and absolutely nothing came of it. And
True.
a lot of other NFL players So it seems like the NFL takes a stand. If you all can make us money and throw that football or catch it or block, then we'll turn a blind eye. And like you said, they are presumed innocent. Mr. Watson is presumed innocent. In fact, like you said, the grand jury decided not to indict him. Um, but it is a good contrast that you brought up. The way that they handle players with these type of allegations versus how they had handled Kaepernick for literally merely taking the knee during the national anthem.
I mean, there are football players who have killed people.
Yeah.
And were able to continue playing.
Mm-hmm. Yet Colin Kaepernick was blackballed and just made a piranha, a social piranha by the NFL and by a lot of its supporters.
For merely taking a stand.
So
something ain't right about that.
That's the contrast we want you all to see, guys. That's exactly it. Well, this has been an excellent show. This is all the topics that we had planned to talk about today. We're going to keep all of you rebels, updated on what happens with Jayland Walker. There have been some protests with his case. We'll keep you all updated in the upcoming weeks on what happens with the officers who killed him, whether any charges are issued against them or whether the Walker family sues them. We'll keep you all updated on this gunman with the Highland Park shooter case, Robert Cremo, and what happens with his father, whether or not his father will be sued or charged criminally for his part in that. And we will talk about the trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture as we always do next time, right after this. We thank you all for joining. Anything else, Dad?
Before I go.
Yeah.
I gotta lighten up the moment a little bit. Oh, Lord. Woo. This is so funny. So funny. Every week going forward, we're going to have a sports and entertainment segment, and you're going to hear from Lil Gus.
Sound like he could be on the Boondocks. I don't know if you know that show, Dad, but
oh, saying it like it is said, I will be watching and have subscribed. Keep informing.
Woo! We glad you appreciate it, saying it like it isn't. And I'm gonna check out your videos too. I'm gonna check them out.
Yes, we're gonna go. Let me take this off.
We're gonna go and subscribe as well. Thank you, and please also share with your subscribers. That is very, very important. Someone tuned in about a month ago, and this person has a lot of subscribers, and they recommended our channel. And actually, another channel that I do picked up 150 subscribers from that person's recommendation. So, also, you all see here that in Texas right now, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it is 103 degrees Fahrenheit right now as we speak. And it feels even hotter than that. So, wow.
Yeah, it's hot.
It is hot. So, Chloe,
it's hot.
I've enjoyed it as always. I think we put it out there. We got confirmation from Saying It Like It Is. If Saying It Like It Is said that we said it like it is, then we must have said it like it is. So.
And Alicia, she said, amazing topics and very, very informative. Everyone subscribe.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So then, is that it?
Is that everything? If that's everything, Lil Gus says, see ya.
Peace.